My name is Ross Freedman. My title is Business Development Manager for the Americas for crypto and Web3. And I just want to state for the record that any views I express during this conversation here today are of my own volition solely.
All right. Well, welcome to our series, A Future of Money. I think it's very fitting to have Worldpay as part of our series. You guys are giants in the payments industry. You service pretty much, I think I read a stats of 16% of every dollar that is being used in commerce. And it might even be an outdated stat from a couple of years back. But you're quite a leader in the industry. So we're excited to hear your views on where the payments industry is today, how the industry is evolving by bringing in new innovative tools. So let's have a conversation and tell us a little bit about you, your journey.
Sure. So I'm a crypto enthusiast myself. I got into the space professionally roughly 4 years ago, working at a banking as a service platform, facilitating digital wallets and ACH rails domestically in the United States. While there, we sold to many notable crypto companies, MoonPay, Banksa, to name a couple, and really any company that was trying to facilitate either fiat on or off ramps via the ACH rails. Since then, I also worked at a startup called CoinFX. We provided cross-border money remittance services via a stablecoin rail. And now currently I'm in my role at Worldpay, where I'm helping both exchanges, wallets, OTC desks, and anyone that's also looking for on and off ramps via credit card acquiring.
Well, you know the world of payments well from your background. So I certainly do know that Worldpay has been active in the crypto space for a few years and having such an operations in the 140 plus countries around the world that they certainly are exploring things. Share how that fits overall in the payments industry and what the Worldpay is looking at and experimenting with and where the industry is going.
Sure. So we have a vast global coverage throughout, I believe it's 140 plus countries and counting. And really what we're trying to do is just help facilitate and bring more access to crypto services in places that might be underserved, places that have no access at all. And we want to be able to do that primarily through offering card acquiring services. Now, what that means is anyone that has a credit or debit card in any of the jurisdictions we service will be able to essentially go to any crypto merchant or crypto adjacent service that's utilizing crypto for the purchase of goods and services and be able to use their credit or debit card to acquire those assets.
For the crypto space in general and payments in general, broadening beyond the cards, what do you think the focus of Worldpay is today? And what has been a welcomed tool that Worldpay or other players in the industry have experimented with or are way in the well of implementing?
So I think one thing that we've seen lots of mass adoption with and enthusiasm with in the industry over the past several years, and especially the past couple of years, has been the use of stablecoin adoption and the use of stablecoins, both for payments as well as payment settlement. At Worldpay, we do offer USDC settlement in several of our jurisdictions for our customers. But beyond Worldpay, we've seen several other companies. Previously, I worked at CFX Labs, and we were basically attempting to implement a stablecoin rail specifically for our cross-border money transfer services. And especially in the remittance space and cross-border money transfer space, we see a lot of legacy systems like the Western Unions and MoneyGrams of the world, wire transfers, systems and rails that have been in place literally for decades. And so stablecoins specifically, but as well as the entire crypto industry, that is one of, in my opinion, the ripest opportunities for disruption and for many companies to be able to implement stablecoin rails and services to be able to transact internationally on a cross-border level.
I think you're picking up on something which is very important, that even though with advancements of digital wallets and with even the products and services that Worldpay is putting out, a lot of times much of the back-end infrastructure is still a legacy infrastructure. Which would be, you would say, the advantage of the blockchain infrastructure for processing the payments and financial transfers?
Sure. So the advantages are definitely speed of transaction. Specific blockchains such as Solana can settle in literally a matter of seconds, right? And I use Solana as a great example because in addition to being one of the fastest settlement blockchains, the fee structure is also minute. It's generally fractions of a penny per transaction. Additionally, there's a decentralized aspect to this, right? So even though the word decentralized kind of gives the connotation of less control, there's more transparency, right? So speed, cost, and then transparency of having anyone being able to reference any transaction at any time, I believe all gives great advantages over traditional banking methods. We have a very innovative product stack. We have pretty much almost some of the fastest settlement times for settling transactions, whether they be domestic or cross-border. And really what we see, and this is from a payments perspective in general, and especially with the fintech revolution, is we used to see a lot of gated and siloed payment networks, payment rails that would need to interact with each other. And the timing of that would be very slow. The compliance requirements would be vast for two networks to connect to each other, for a merchant to be able to tap into multiple markets at the same time. So one thing Worldpay and several other companies are starting to offer is the ability to onboard a service or a merchant and be able to have them connect to every jurisdiction that they'd like to go to, integrated into one total payments compliance technology stack. So rather than needing to piece together individual agreements with different banks and different countries, you can go to just one vendor, one single source to be able to facilitate payments to multiple places throughout the world all at once. One trend that's pretty easily observable, and we can see this especially in Latin America, is the volatility of some of the native currencies. Everyone's pretty well aware of what's going on in Argentina right now. Similar things are taking place in other countries like Colombia and Venezuela, where there's an extremely high demand for US dollars due to the volatility of their own currencies. So stable coins being able to settle in USDC specifically, but even Tether to a certain degree, we see extremely high demand for because those consumers in those countries would rather hold currency essentially backed by US dollars rather than their own central banks. And specifically in countries like El Salvador, where they've made Bitcoin a national currency. And then if you look at some of the statistics in some Latin American regions, in Argentina, crypto adoption has been massive. You know, in the United States, we kind of still have this naive viewpoint of crypto being an investment tool and vehicle and kind of asset class that needs to be scrutinized from a standpoint of investments. But in other regions of the world, it's really viewed more as a payment method because it's more efficient, faster, and much less volatile than the actual currencies that they have being facilitated by their own central banks. I think that especially this year, we're obviously in the middle of a bull run right now. And I think that this is going to continue rather than be cyclical as we've seen in the past, mostly due to the fact that we're finally, especially in the United States, starting to see mass institutional adoption. Obviously, Bitcoin is at all-time highs right now. And the main reason for that, I believe, is due to the fact that we've released an ETF backed by companies like Fidelity and BlackRock. Crypto in the United States is still somewhat of a, how do I say this, an enigma, right? Where most of the country still views it as some kind of nuance or fad or trend that will come and go for unknown reasons. But as we see more major financial institutions start to adopt them and use them, then I believe we're going to start to see the trends that we've seen in Latin America, Asia to a certain degree as well. We're starting to use them on a more whole scale level. The United States is trending in that direction. Now, I've personally held some interesting theses myself of whether or not we'll have a CBDC at some point in the United States in the next 5 to 10 years, which I do believe will happen. Not sure exactly what the timeline on that will be, but it seems like crypto is definitely here to stay, not just from an investment standpoint, but also from a pure payment standpoint. And I think a lot of the use cases we've already seen internationally are starting to creep into the US with much more enthusiasm, favor, and adoption than they ever have before. And I believe the market trends from the beginning of this year were driven less by investor enthusiasm as much as they were actual practical applications of seeing how blockchain payments can be facilitated, as well as now seeing major financial institutions, such as the ones I've mentioned, start to actually use them as more, we'll call them formal asset classes.
I think you're completely right. And we've participated recently in a Coinbase summit here in Washington, D.C. It's a policy discussion. And I can tell you from the audience, the representatives and the congressmen are eager to engage in the discussion, which is a good, a positive development. So I think you're right. I think that as the policy shifts and more familiarity with crypto and potential for crypto, and especially potential for technology itself is revealed, we'll see greater adoption and use of it and proliferation. Now, you touched on ETFs. What's your point of view on the top 500 digital asset idea?
So personally, I think that there's still a lot of volatility among a lot of the asset classes, but I think what we're starting to see, I am a Solana maxi, love what Zebec is doing, especially with their work on the Solana blockchain. I think Solana specifically got a lot of bad press a few years ago due to the FTX and SBF news and Alameda fallout. But I think it's somewhat publicly known that they've had some turnover and new leadership and management in Solana Labs and a lot of the other entities that help facilitate that blockchain. And some of the top 3 to 5 asset classes, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana, I think are starting to show some very strong infrastructural improvements, developments, new companies building on them, and they're becoming more established as real payment rails rather than just assets classes to be invested in.
So I think we covered a lot of ground. I appreciate your time, and you're one of our first guests on our series of candid conversations, and we hope to welcome you back, and thank you very much.
Thanks so much for your time, Elena. It was wonderful being able to speak with you.